Hi, welcome back to Paul's Stuff. It's my space on YouTube where I get to talk about all the things I love. Lots of Star Wars, lots of lightsabers. And today is about lightsabers, but it's not about a specific lightsaber. Today what I want to talk about is a new electronics package that has come out just recently for lightsabers. It's called the Xeno3. It's produced by Nexus. Used to be LGT, they're now known as Nexus. And it's their new soundboard. This actually replaces two existing soundboards from Nexus. So this takes the place of the Xenopixel V2, and it also takes the place of their RGBX baselit lightsaber board as well. So this is one board that does both. I think that's the first time that Nexus have done that. I think other companies have done it before. Other boards have done it before, but this is the first time a Nexus board has been produced that does both. So that's the first new thing about it. At the moment, it's very difficult to get hold of just the boards in the UK. You can buy them from, I believe, from AliExpress. You can buy them in from Dark Wolf in the States. But the cheapest way I've found and quickest way I've found at the moment to get a board to put into a Saber is actually to buy a baselit core from Padawan Outpost here in the UK. That's what I did. I bought a baselit core. I've then unsoldered the board from the baselit core and soldered it into this, my Ben 1 Saber, which had a Xenopixel V2 previously. So in order to do that, there are wiring diagrams on Dark Wolf's support page for the Xeno3. I'll leave a link to that in the description. That's really the place to go for information on the Xeno3 at the moment. Dark Wolf are co-developing it along with Damien Saber, who own Nexus, and yeah, that's the place to go if you want up-to-date information, up-to-date updates, all the information that is available really about this board at the moment you can find on there. So that's what I did to get the board in here. I unsoldered it from the baselit core, put it in here, followed the wiring diagram from Dark Wolf to do that. Fairly straightforward. The only other thing you have to do is go into the config file on the SD card which is on this board, and there's a line in there which tells the Saber whether you want it to operate as RGB or as pixel, and obviously you need to set that up before you turn the Saber on for the first time. So this one now has the Xeno3 in it, set up as a pixel blade. I've put a 28-inch blade in this today. Normally I would have a 32-inch blade in it, but I've put a 28-inch simply so that you can hopefully see things a bit better on the video with a slightly less long blade. So what does the Xeno3 do? So it has pretty much all the functionality that the old Xenopixel V2 had, and it operates in a very similar way. So normally when you first go to one of these Sabers, it will be in deep sleep mode and you have to wake it up from that. Now the V2 had like an automatic sleep mode. After 10 minutes of not being used, it would automatically go into deep sleep mode. I haven't seen that happen with the Xeno3 yet. It may do, I don't know. It may just be me, but I haven't actually seen that happen yet. So hopefully I've got this in deep sleep mode, and to turn it on from there, you press and hold the button until normally it will say power on. Mine's got a custom config that I normally use. The video on how to do custom configs, this is pretty much the same. I will update it to Xeno3 in due course. It's set up for Xeno2 at the moment. But normally when you press and hold the button like that, it will say power on. Then once you've got power on, all you do is tap the button and the blade ignites. You've got all the sound that you would expect on here. The Xeno3 now has accent sounds as well. So I know Kyberphonic and I think KSith are already updating their fonts so that they're Xeno3 compatible. So they have the accent swings on as well. There's a couple of other features that need additional sound files in the font as well, which I'll mention as we go through. So on top of that, you've also got gesture controls. So again, those of you that have been watching the channel regularly will know the only gesture control I have on to light or turn off the lightsaber is the twist one. And that works perfectly. I have noticed that sometimes the blade lighting can be a little bit glitchy. Now I do have it on pulse blade setting, so it will flicker a little bit, but I've noticed sometimes it's a little bit glitchy in the blade as well. But it's very early days on this board. I think they're really still developing it quite heavily at the moment. So we'll turn it back on and you get all the usual effects. So blaster block. This one's set up with one of the new lighting effects. So one of the changes in the config file is that you can now set up different lighting effects for blaster block, lock up, tip drag, all of the lighting effects that would normally happen on a V2. You can now select different versions of that. So I've got a version on here where the whole blade is flashing for the blaster block. Got flash on cache. This can be customized as well in the config file. Tip drag. So I think on the V2 this used to be a little bit longer, but it is still there. Now there are, oh, and of course force effect. So again, those of you that watch regularly will know that I set up the force effect to have quotes attached to it.
Oh, I have a bad feeling about this.
So this has loads of quotes from Obi-Wan on it. Now we have two new lighting effects as well. So the first one is lightning deflect. So you trigger that by holding the button and pulling the saber in towards you. It will keep going after you let go of the button, and you press the button again to stop it. So again, you hold the button and pull it in towards you. That's gone into lock-up mode. There we go. Pull it in towards you and you get this effect, which is the lightning block effect. It does still have lock-up on it, so for that you have press the button and flash. And now you'll notice as the blade orientation changes, the lock-up point actually moves up and down the blade. I hope you can see that on the blue blade. May not show up very well. And again, another change, you have to press the button again afterwards to go out of lock-up. One of my favourite new lighting effects is the tip mount. So for this, you hold the button and stab, and then you get this lovely colour at the tip, and if you twist the blade, the colour changes as you twist the blade, which is great. Again, you don't have to hold the button in for this effect. You press the button again and that gets rid of it. Another new feature is there's now a sound cue for the menus. So previously, if you had a Saber like this that didn't have an illuminated button on it, you were left guessing how long to press the button for to go into the different menus. But now they've added a bleep, and you can turn this off again in the config. So now when you press the button, it will bleep however many times, and that will tell you which menu you're going into. So if you, with the Saber off, if you press the button for one bleep, it will take you to the volume.
Volume low. Mute. Volume high.
If you adjust the volume on the Saber, you just get those three settings. But what it does mean is it's easier now to get into all the other menus. So, so you want to change the blade effect on here. If you go, or the blade style, you go 2 bleeps.
Flash blade.
So that's now a flash blade. I'm not going to turn it on because it strobes really badly.
Fire blade.
So this is a fire blade now. You can see the blade effect hopefully there. All the other things are the same. I don't know if you can hear it, but that beep happens when you push the button when the blade is on as well. So that's a lot better now in terms of how the menu works on the V3. So the big change though, and the thing that most people are going to be interested in, I think, is it's now Bluetooth enabled, and there's an app, which means you can connect your Saber to the app and make all sorts of changes to it whilst it's on the app. So I'm just going to turn this on for a second. Okay, so when you first go into the app, you don't have to have the Saber turned on, but it does have to be out of deep sleep. So when you first go into the app is available in Android and iOS formats. This is the iOS format, obviously, and as you can see here, as well as working on the iPhone, it will work on an iPad as well. So when you first turn it on, you'll be greeted with this screen. You tap here, and that will bring up a list of Sabers that it can find. It can only find this one at the moment. We'll tap into that and then confirm, and it's trying to connect. It says
App connected.
the Saber tells you that the app's connected. Now I've found that when the Saber is completely together like this, there we go, the signal seems to be really weak from the Bluetooth. So what I've discovered is if you take the pommel off and expose the core, you actually get a better connection. So I'm just going to pop that down there now and leave that there. So we'll connect to it again. It's connected.
App connected.
The Saber tells you that the app's connected. Now, up here, it'll tell you which Saber's connected. When you get, I'll get to the menu for that in a moment, but where you can change that. As you can see, mine's set up for, it says Obi-Wan Kenobi Episode 3, which is what this hilt is. it only stores that on the device, on the iOS device or the Android device. It doesn't store it on the Saber. So if, like me, you're using an iPhone and an iPad with the app, you have to set that name up on each one. Then we've got a little little symbol here which is about the battery. So the app will monitor the battery level. Now I've found that the app, for a start, the app has never said to me that I've got 100% battery. And this brings me on to something with the charging on this Saber as well. So with the V2, you used to plug in the charger, it would say charging, and when it was complete it would say ready. This one says charging when you plug it in. Again, I've yet to hear it say ready when it is finished charging. I don't know whether that's got something to do with it. I don't know again whether that's just me not doing something quite right with the new setup. But yeah, it's I don't know how accurate that battery level is. Also tells you how many minutes you've got left. Yeah, I'm a bit skeptical about that as well. So at the moment this is saying 45% battery and around about 54 minutes of use left. Then we've got volume control. And if we go into here, if you remember on the Saber we just had loud, quiet and mute. Now we can go quite granular.
Volume level 70%.
Now one thing I found with this,
Volume level 48%.
it's not doing it now.
Volume level 70%.
Occasionally, like then, it will tell you the wrong volume level from the Saber. So I've got this set to 71 on the app and it's just told me 70. So we'll turn that right down.
Volume level 29%.
Okay, and you just tap anywhere to go out of it. Then we've got an interesting button here which is font select. So if we go to that, we can select which sound font we want. You see that this blade now has gone back to a pulse blade because the second sound font that I've got on here, which is KSith, the bold one, that's set up with a pulse blade. So if I go back to 1, it's gone back to the fire blade that I set up earlier on that sound font. So you can change your sound fonts here. And the Saber will announce which sound font you've selected. And then you've got a sub menu up here which says setting for light effects. So on here you've got the various different light effects up here. So you've got the hum light effect. At the moment this is set to 7, which is the pulse one, but you can go through
Cracked blade.
the different light effects that are on the blade.
Unstable.
Won't stay on that one.
Unstable. Rainbow blade.
Now if you've got it gives you the option to turn off some of the blade settings in the config file, and if you've got that done, then you'll find that the first 4 or so come up as unstable.
Rainbow blade. Cracked blade.
So we'll go back to
Cracked blade. Cracked blade. Flash blade. Flash blade. Flash blade. Flash blade. Flash blade. Pulse.
go back to the pulse blade because I like that. So you can set all of those. You can set the blaster light effect. Now the problem with the other effects is even with the blade on, you can't see them happening unless you trigger them. So at the moment this has got that blast effect. Swap it to 2. Now a different blade effect, and 1 different one again. I think I'll leave that on 1. So you can do that again. You've got the force light effect, the lock-up effect. The blaster effect is fairly easy to replicate on the blade because all you've got to do is push the button. But with the others, you've got to pick the saber up and twist it and all sorts, and you can't do that easily. There is another way to test it. So you have to come out, and then you've got these buttons here which will show you the different effects. That's the tip drag. So these will all go through the different effects with you. So this is the blaster effect, or is it? No, flash on clash effect. This is the blaster.
Wait a minute, how did this happen? We're smarter than this.
And that's the force one for that. If we carry on down the app, we can go into colour changing as well. So you can do quick colour select. So we go to that. That will flash through the most common colours. When you get to the one you want,
Colour selected.
you tap the button and it stops it.
Colour change.
So this is infinite colour change, so this will cycle through all of the different colours that the saber can do. And again, when you get to a colour that you like the look of,
Colour selected.
you just select it. The top one, colour palette, when you go into that, this is where you can really get into the RGB colour effects on the blade. So you can either set it using the blade set it using the colours here. Or you can put in RGB values. So I know, for example, the colour I had this originally set to has a setting for red of 32. We'll just take that down to 32. This one, the green one, is 158. And the blue setting is 230. So I can set the exact colour that I want using this. There we go. And the blade's gone back to the colour that I originally wanted. So we click on the top, we come out of there. And the last button on this screen is the track button. So you press that and it will play the next track that is available. And it will play the tracks in sequence, much like turning the tracks on the Saber. Next we go on to another page. Now this is the basic settings for the blade. So here we have things like blade length. So This is a 28-inch blade, so it sets has a pixel count of around about 100 to 99. But say I want to put in a smaller blade, say I want to put in a 14-inch blade, that's going to have a pixel count of about 50. So we'll go down to 50, and now my blade has shortened down to 50. And you can do that right the way up through to like 36-inch blades. It'll handle those no problem. You can adjust the brightness of the blade, which is another new feature. So say I only want about 10% of the brightness of the blade, I can dial the blade brightness right back. That's a nice feature. We've then got settings for side blades. This saber doesn't have side blades, but if you had like a Kylo Ren with blades that come out the side, you can set the delay on them, all of these parameters for those. Next we've got flash on clash sensitivity. I haven't changed that, comes set at 28. I find that kind of works for me. And then we've got the power on time and the power off time. So this is when you first press the button to get it out of deep sleep, it'll take about a second to come out of deep sleep. And when you press the button to send it back into deep sleep, you have to keep it pressed for about 10 seconds and it will go back in. As you can see on here, I've taken that down a little bit to about 6 seconds. I find that works better for me. So other things we have on here are to do with the prions. I haven't really gotten to grips that much with prions on these yet, so haven't done much with those. If we go back up to the top, there's another menu here which says motion control. Now, at the moment, the only motion control that is configurable via the app is the stab and the pull motion. You can turn that on or off for turning the saber on or off, but these sensitivity bars actually control the things like the tip mount and the lightning block. So you do need to set those up so that it works for you. I found what works best for me is to have them right up. If you look at the bottom, there is another 2 blocks that are blanked out at the moment. So I think what's going to happen with those is that we'll get similar motion controls and sensitivity controls for swing on and off and twist on and off. The next screen is custom controls. Now all of these at the moment are not available. If you go and have a look at Dark Wolf's page for this board, the support page, it does say that the app is still in development. And I believe they rushed the app out. They released the board a couple of 3 weeks early, and they rushed the app out whilst it's still in development so that people can use it, but it isn't fully functional yet. So nothing on here works, but eventually we will get custom functions, custom light effects and custom fonts. The last page on here is what I'm going to call the global page. So this is more to do with the saber overall. I'm just going to turn this saber off for a moment. You could hear hopefully the bleeping then, that menu bleep. So if we go into the little cog wheel, the settings wheel at the top, you can set the language for the app and you can check the version and I think update the app from here as well. Underneath that, it shows you the name of the saber. If you click on that, it will take you into this screen where you have an upload and a read of the saber config. So I'm assuming that what will happen in time, this section isn't working at the moment. The read and write of the config file isn't happening at the moment. But I'm assuming what you could do is read the config file off of the Saber and store it locally on your device, and then you can always put it back on if you need to at some point. So that will be helpful. You can update the software. So this is the latest version of the software that I've got on here, but that's for updating the Saber software. We've got a Saber factory reset. So if you want to reset everything back to how the board was when it came out of the factory, you can do that. And then we've got rename, which is where you can set this name at the top. But as I said earlier, if you're using more than one device with your Saber, then it actually stores this name on the device, not on the Saber. So you'll need to put that name in on each of your devices. And then we've got a big red button that says disconnect. Before we do that, I'm going to go back and just point out a couple of things that, one other thing that I find is a little bit annoying with it. So when you're on this blade setup page, you've got no way of knowing whether the Saber is still connected to the app or not. There's nothing on this page at all to tell you whether the Saber is connected to the app or not. And if it's not connected to the app, you can be merrily making changes here and none of them are going to get transmitted to the Saber. So the only places you can see that the app's connected to the Saber is this first page and this page. And then if you want to manually disconnect it, as soon as you walk away from the app, the device with the app on, the Saber's going to disconnect anyway. But if you want to manually disconnect it, if you click on there, that's disconnected. And if we go back to our first screen, we've gone back to the screen where we need to connect it. So yeah, that's a brief run through really of the Xeno3. I've had this now about a day, so this is really my very early impressions of it, how it works. I'm hoping you've been able to see some of the stuff that is on there. The main takeaways for me are that this is very much a system that is still under development, and particularly the app. It is a little bit glitchy in places. The app is not fully functional yet. So I wouldn't buy one of these right now and expect it to be a fully functional, well-rounded, fully developed system. It's not yet. I would say it's maybe a little step up from the V2 at the moment, but the potential for this is enormous. They've built a whole lot more capability into the hardware so that they can expand it more over time. And from what I'm seeing at the moment, the potential is there for this to be a really, really good system going forward. Few things to iron out. It would be nice if they ironed out some of those little things on the app, like where you can't see certain things while you're in parts of the app. It would be really, really nice if they were able to sort out the connectivity issue and having to expose the core in order to get a stable connection. That would be really good. And this isn't just me. I was chatting last night with Sheena from SJ Weathering, and she was having the same problem with one of her Sabers until she unscrewed the handle and exposed the core, and then she got a stable connection as well. So that is a thing with them at the moment. I think they've probably kept the power down to stop people walking around conventions and things and changing other people's lightsabers willy-nilly, but that does mean you have to be in quite close proximity, and with at least some sabers anyway, you need to remove part of the saber to expose the core to get a good stable connection. So that's something they may tweak in the coming days. What I love about it, it's got all the functionality of the V2, but now with the accent swings, which are nice. I really like the 2 new lighting effects. The lightning block is really good, and I really love the mount effect. That's brilliant. Not sure I showed you actually, but with that mount effect, see if I can get it to go. So at the moment it's a sort of orangey red, but if you twist the saber, the colour of the mount changes. Really, really cool. Really like that effect. So yeah, it's a system in its infancy. Let's put it that way. It's not a fully rounded system or fully developed system yet, but I think it's going to be a fantastic system going forwards as it gets developed and added to. It's really nice too now that you've got a choice of the lighting effects for things like blaster block and flash on clash. You can change how they look. Before you were just stuck with the stock one. Now you've got, I think, 3 options on most of them. And they are quite different from one another. So yeah, lovely system. Lots and lots of potential. Not quite there yet, but I don't think it's going to take much for it to get there. So as I said before, this is a new system from Nexus and Damien Saber, being developed alongside Dark Wolf custom sabers in the States. I will leave a link in the description to Dark Wolf and their support page for the Xeno3, because that really is where all of the information is at the moment. I'll leave a link to where you can buy the cores from Padawan Outpost here in the UK. I'll leave a link to my new buddy, to Sheena from SJ Weathering. If you want a lightsaber weathered, you really can't go wrong by going to Sheena, and I'll leave a link to her, to how to contact her in the description as well. But for now, I think that's everything on the Xeno3. So I've only had it a day. I may find other things going forward that I'll do other videos on, but for now, that's my quick and dirty look, if you like, at the Xeno3, the new Nexus soundboard. I hope you liked what you've heard. If you do like this video, then please give it the old thumbs up. And if you haven't already, then please consider subscribing to the channel. I think at the time of reading we're about 380 members. Be great to have more people subscribe to the channel. So if you haven't and you like the content, then please do subscribe and click on that notification bell, and that will tell you when I'm putting new content online. But yeah, other than that, I think that's everything for today. So for now, I'll say cheerio.